How's it going, Laser Bruce's up? I'm Sixkilla and welcome back to the Divine Deception. That's what it's called. I nearly didn't English that properly, but the Divine Deception. That is actually strangely hard to say. Anyway, we're back on the haunted ship with the ruiner guy trying to shoot us to death. We're in Act 2 now, and it's getting very exciting. We just fell out of the vent, and now we're seeing if we're about to be shot to death. So let's carry on, shall we? I was in a small, empty room. Cool. Didn't need any other details for now. Instantly, I rushed over and put my body weight directly against the door. I did this primarily for two reasons. First of all, looking at the door's window, it would be difficult to see me looking in from this angle. I guess if you specifically tried looking directly behind the door, you could probably see part of my body, but if it got that far, I was already screwed. Secondly, if Thane did hear that and was running towards this door, it would help me to fend him off. I could try and keep the door closed by pushing it. Far from an elegant or permanent solution, but it might buy myself a bit more time. So that's why I pushed directly against the door. And then I waited. And waited. My heart felt like it was beating out of my chest. Why this approach instead of just running straight out? Well, this is the way I saw it. There were about 3 distances Thane could be from where my fall impacted. They could be very close to the fall. In that case, running out would likely have me running directly into Thane, which will result in a bullet in me. Bad end. He could be somewhat nearby, but not super close. In this case, if I haphazardly start running out, I wouldn't know what direction he was in, so again, I'd run the risk of encountering Thane and getting shot. Bad end. Finally, Thane could be a good distance from the fall. In that case, right now, they weren't sure where I was. If I just waited for a little bit, I'd be safe. So I waited for a little bit. And after a minute or two, I determined we were in that third situation. I had more or less lost Thane. Excellent. This was ideal for me. I mean, ideal a situation could be. I still had to... Fuck, what was my endgame here? Leaving? I hadn't the time to really think that far ahead yet. Well, while I was hiding, now should be that time. Well, I saw it, there were 3 general strategies I could try, though they didn't necessarily overlap with each other. I could try just waiting it out until daytime. On the other hand, it felt sort of unlikely that Thane would willingly take the ship back to the dock while there was still a liability like me aboard. But then again, I didn't know how a lot of aspects of this operation worked. This is a fairly large ship. It was clouded in secrecy. There was the possibility that Thane and whoever else owned this ship simply didn't have the option of keeping it out in the middle of the ocean indefinitely. And if it was just a matter of hiding and staying alive, there was a lot of space. Still, this plan didn't feel great. Unfortunately, none of these plans felt great. Plan 2 certainly didn't feel great. It was to somehow steer the ship to the dock myself. Did I know where the steering controls of the ship were? No. Did I know how to sail a ship? No. Was it likely that the people aboard the ship would take kindly to me sailing it right back to shore? No. That last bit was the largest hurdle, but it also might not be considering Plan 3. Eliminate all other threats on the ship. I use the term eliminate broadly, but in all likelihood I'd have to kill them. Though incapacitation would be ideal. Regardless, this almost felt like the least likely option of the 3. Thane certainly didn't look easy to get the jump on, and more upsettingly, I had no idea if Thane was the only threat aboard. The T-1000. So far it seemed like that, but an operation like this, I could easily see there being more people involved. I still hadn't accounted for those footsteps I was hearing above deck. If those screams were real, those probably were there as well. Not an optimistic situation to be sure, but if I wanted any chance of survival, I needed to bank on one or more of these tactics. As far as I could tell, some combination of these 3 plans was my best out. Okay, that's enough hiding. Honestly, this little break was more for my own benefit than a strategic reason. But I couldn't just stay here the whole time. Even if I wanted to angle for option 1, hiding in a random room like this would probably backfire before too long. First I crawled over and grabbed my shoe off the ground. Put it back on. Great. Then very slowly I opened the door. God, these doors creak. I entered the hallway, gingerly placing one foot after another. There I was in the hallway. Now what? Silence. I didn't hear anything. What on earth? Surely I should be hearing at least something at this point. Had Thane stopped looking for me? Or was he on another part of the ship entirely? Neither option felt promising. Well, the only way out is through, I suppose. I had to start moving at some point. I mean, I could keep hiding, but again, probably a bad idea. Slowly, very slowly, I made my way through the metal halls. At each corner, I made sure to quickly pop my head out to check if there was someone around the bend. Thane, specifically. However, I kept lucking out and I didn't run into him. Lucky me. I kept slowly making my way through this iron coffin. God, now that I was no longer in immediate danger, that good old paranoia was beginning to kick back into gear. Thoughts, mindless thoughts, illogical thoughts started flooding in. What if Thane was right behind me? What if Thane had shuttled the exits and was flooding the boat? What if I was already dead? Okay, brain, already dead? We could do better without dumb paranoid conspiracy theories. Fuck. Where was I even trying to go? I guess making my way back up to the deck of the ship above board would be ideal. I couldn't quite determine what the specific logic for that thought was, but I felt it somewhere in my gut. Dear God. Feeling things in my gut? What did I devolve to? Whatever. I sure as shit didn't know the layout of the ship, but I always had a decent sense of direction. An internal compass, if you will. Despite everything, I could feel the direction where I came from on some level of my subconscious. Or at least I thought I did. I really hated relying on my subconscious. But it was where I was at in life, so I continued my silent, methodical movement. Now at least I had a sense of direction. Down halls, around corners I slunk, fully aware that at any moment I'd have to spring into action. At any moment I could be face to face with a gun-wielding maniac. Well, if that happened, fuck me, I guess. Play my outs. I'm gonna be fine. I'm gonna be fine. I repeated that mindless mantra to myself as I made my way through the ship. And after a while, I was in familiar territory. I knew where I was in the ship. I was close to the staircase back up deck. The excitement of this realization made me want to speed up, but no. Still keep slow and steady. You never knew when you'd encounter danger. Like an hour, for instance. I took 2 steps back immediately. I was pretty sure he didn't see me. He didn't see me, right? I held my breath. No noise. He didn't see me. Or even if he did, he wasn't moving from his space. Around the corner in front of me, the ship had a straight path, with a turn to the left midway through that path. Standing firm, right in the center of that turn which led right to the stairs, was the demon Thane. I only got a glimpse, but it looked like he was just standing there. He had something in his left hand, though I didn't get a good look. Pistol still in his right. Jesus Christ, the moment I saw him, my heart plummeted. I couldn't deal with this. I couldn't keep dealing with this. How had I gotten here? What pushed me to board the manjet? I tried retracing all my steps. Was any of this worth it? Yeah, it would be. I mean, you told me exactly what I'd be getting myself into. If you told me exactly what I'd be getting myself into, then yeah, maybe I'd have some second thoughts, but I didn't regret starting this quest. I couldn't. After all, it was JC's last request. And I could have been a pretty bad friend, but at least I owed her this much. Even though we didn't end in the best of places, JC was one of my oldest friends. I remember being close with her ever since I was a kid. It wasn't really a thing I had a lot of control over. My parents were friends with her parents. That sort of thing happened a lot, so I count myself lucky that I got to meet JC at all. She was always so bright. I mean that in more ways than one. She had a bright personality and a bright mind. In some ways, I might have been smarter than her, but even still, I often felt like I was the one trailing behind. I felt the need to try and impress her. However, even if she wasn't such a sparkling personality, things probably still would have broken the same way. You spend enough time with someone at a young age, you're bound to have an incredible connection with them one way or another. It's the reason people can have absolutely abysmal parents and still feel the need for their approval. So yeah, one way or another, JC really defined a lot of my younger life. We hung out a lot, went to the same school. At one point I might have had a crush on her. I don't know, I wasn't really emotionally mature enough at the time to really understand it all. If I did, it was probably a good thing I never acted on those thoughts at the time. Whatever it was, eventually I moved past it. JC and I stayed friends all the way into high school. But from there, well, life happened. We became different people. At one point, we got into a pretty big fight. She was probably in the right about it, but I've never been able to accept it at the time. She moved away, so did I. Our lives went in separate directions. I tried reaching out to her a couple of times since then, kept somewhat in contact, but none of our subsequent conversations really went all that well. There was still a definite distance. A lot of that was my fault. But I didn't want to keep JC out of my life, especially not permanently. I mean, we were moving in different directions, but still, in the back of my head I always viewed the rift as, I don't know, temporary. That eventually we'd get over it. Eventually we'd be close again, hanging out frequently. Who knows, maybe that would have been the case, had life played out a little differently. But we make plans. But we make plans and God laughs. Never take anything for granted, yada yada. Before I knew it, I got my last message from JC. And shortly after that, she disappeared. Dropped off the face of the globe. No, she didn't just drop off. She was killed. Killed, I was fairly certain, on this very ship. And the only person who could do anything about it was me. That's why I boarded the Manjet. That's why I was staring down death. That's why I have to get off this place. It was really the only way to make things right with JC. So then, I shook my head. I need to keep my head in reality. Stay focused and escape. That was my purpose. Okay, let's think this through. Thane was standing in front of the stairs. He seemed to be just standing there casually. He was meddling with something, though I couldn't say what in specific. He'd probably been standing there for a while. That's why it was so silent. Did he default to guarding that point after he lost me in the vents? Probably. So then why? What information does this give me? Well, there were three inferences I could make, in descending order of reliability. The first one was pretty much 100% confident about. Those stairs were the only way back above deck. If there were multiple ways of getting back up there, they would not be putting all his eggs in a single basket the way he has. That'd be completely unreasonable. Hell, Thane looked to be completely defenseless from behind. If there were another way to get above deck, I could rush behind and stab him or something. The fact that he seemed so utterly concerned with the possibility made it pretty likely it wasn't a possibility. It was an impossibility. So one way out. Second assumption I wasn't sure about, but it seemed to make sense. If Thane wasn't making any moves to kill me now, then he probably felt confident that if things stayed the way they were, I'd die eventually. Well, it's possible that while he stood there, he was contacting other crewmates to come hunt me down. That might have been what he was doing. Or maybe there was some other reason why he thought I'd inevitably die. Some unknown factor I wasn't thinking of for whatever reason. Given what I'd seen, Thane needed to kill me. If he seemingly had no immediate desire to do so, I had to assume he thought the situation would rectify itself. The final assumption I was worried might have been wishful thinking, but thinking about it, let's say those first two assumptions hold true. That's the only way above board. My life was on a timer. That doesn't necessarily explain why he'd be a puppy guarding that one spot. Given Thane's twisted personality, I imagine he'd still be hunting me down, if for no other reason but sport. Unless, of course, he couldn't afford that sort of arrogance. Him standing there, guard there, implied that there was something above deck that might have given me a chance of living, or at the very least, being above deck meant I wouldn't necessarily die. If that was the case, then I really only had one available option, no? Get above deck. I had to get past it. I didn't know how, per se, but if I had to trust my own logic, I wanted to survive. The third assumption might have been the weakest of the three, but it was also the closest thing to a plan of action I'd had for a while, and it gave me some much needed hope. So then how to get past Thane? As I stood, I had no chance whatsoever. Luckily, there was one place pretty close that might have had some stuff of use. Making sure to still move gingerly, I made my way back to the torture room. Hopefully there'd be something I could use. Looking at that corpse again, my stomach began to drop. I was going to be sick. This is absolutely brutal, the likes I'd never seen. Well, that wasn't quite true. There was one other corpse that had probably had this one beat. Keep it together. I was supposed to have a good gut about these sort of things. I moved forward and began to check the older man's corpse. This is vaguely disrespectful, but now wasn't exactly the time for respect. If the guy was still around, I'm sure he'd think the biggest sign of respect would be evading his killer and avenging his name. I was just seeing if I could lend a hand. I thought it was a dead end until I felt something below his left leg. I pulled up his quite bloody and ripped pant leg and found a thin, sharp ice pick strapped to the back of the guy's leg with a leather string. It had narrowly avoided the gunshots that had entered the human it was attached to. I'm surprised Thane let something like this slip through the cracks. Was this guy just waiting for an opportunity to put this thing to use? Did he never get the opportunity? What was your story, old man? Thane had said you brought this upon yourself. You chose the wrong side. I had a couple of guesses, but none of that quite made sense of the whole situation. What on earth could this ship really be? No, those thoughts were for when I was safe. They weren't likely to have application here. At the very least, I'd gotten a weapon. This was big. My eyes were also drawn to the strange mechanism that had a wire connected to it. It was torturing the old man. I gave it a closer look. To be honest, I had difficulty telling what the actual function of this thing was. Probably useless. What really stood out was this one papery tube on the side that ran from the bottom to the top. I could see it was screwed onto the top. Out of curiosity, I tried unscrewing it. Instantly, I regretted it and began screwing it again. The moment there was a bit of give, smoke immediately started pouring out of it. Fucking great design there, guys. Holy shit. What a load of... Hey, hold on. How much smoke could this make exactly? The pipe was fairly large, and the smoke started coming out of it pretty quick. If it could make a lot of smoke, it could act like a smoke screen, right? That had to be something I could use. Except, no, that probably wasn't right. I mean, What good would a smokescreen realistically do given the current setup? You could stab him while he can't see. Thane would just see through it, put some distance between himself and the smokescreen and start firing through it. Anything I intended to do with this wouldn't work. Thane would see right through it. So then what if I counted on that? The key to adaptability is counterplay. If a plan would fail for some reason, then make that reason part of the plan. Okay, actually I think this could work. It was a risky gambit, certainly. But risk was the name of the game at this point. I grabbed the mystery machine and left the torture room. Then very silently I made my way back to where I'd seen Thane last. As delicately as I could, I made my way around the corner in such a way that Thane couldn't see me. As I got close to the T-turn, I got as close to the T-turn as I could, then I ever so delicately set the machine down. I bent down and began to unscrew the pipe. This had to be super delicate. I was basing my movements on the pressure and the bit of past experience I had there. Right where it got close to being as loose as it could be, I stopped. The pipe was super duper delicately positioned now. The slightest movement might cause it to come loose. That was what I counted on. Now to get into position. I moved with an odd combination of speed and silence. I didn't want things to go to action before I was in place. However, if Thane heard me slinking around, it'd be game over for sure. I was lucky the sounds of the rocking sea gave me a bit of cover. I moved back around the corner, back to the torture room. I kept moving around the torture room, around the hallways. I hadn't actually been down this way yet, but I was making a bet on how the ship was structured. The bet paid off and I ended up on the other side of that hallway. The other end of the T intersection. I could see further down the hall the machine that I left in a precarious spot had yet to burst. Thank God. That was my biggest fear with all of this. I got closer to the T intersection, staying silent as I could. And then I waited. And I waited. Shit. I thought the pipe was on precariously, but what if it wasn't? What if it wasn't going to burst open anytime soon? Could I risk going on and screwing with it more? That felt like a huge fucking risk. The fact that I haven't been hurt up to this point was a miracle and a half. I used to say I wouldn't just mess up screwing the pipe next time. What else then? Could I try knocking over the machine by throwing something small at it? No, but if Thane was paying careful attention, that would ruin the whole thing. I was in the panic-stricken moment of mine, as it often did, that the world burst open into chaos. Just as I was worried about the smoke not doing its job, the apex of my concern, the ocean hit us with a particularly disruptive wave. Enough to rock the machine enough to cause the pipe to come undone. And in an instant, smoke billowed out, immediately making a noise and filling up the place. My smoke screen was being created and Thane reacted appropriately. I could see from my position, him rushing out, facing the smoke screen, backing away from that side of the T intersection. He had his pistol out. He fired twice into the smoky abyss. This is as good chance as I was ever going to get. I took out the ice pick and rushed at him, hoping to stab him in the back. Because of Thane's strafing, I was pretty close to him, as his attention had been successfully diverted. Unfortunately, the geography worked against me. The T intersection meant that the wall sort of jutted out on the right side. The side with which I was holding the ice pick. Because of that I couldn't swing wide. I had to sort of bend a bit during my stab. I don't know if that's what made the difference, or if I never stood a chance. Somehow Thane sensed the attack coming sooner than he should have been able to. In a clean motion he began turning towards me. He smacked the fist I held the ice pick in with the hand he held his pistol in. Fuck! The ice pick went soaring off over the stairs, well out of my reach. My one means of fighting back gone. No, not true. I still had two pretty lethal weapons. Keeping the momentum of surprise on my side, I aimed a square punch at his face with my left arm. If I hit him head on, that'd hopefully stun him enough to allow a follow-up. And in a one-on-one scenario, once someone begins wailing on the other person, the fight's usually over. Unfortunately, as already made apparent, Thane was no pushover. He bobbed to the side, my fist just barely missing the stupid black helmet. As my swing failed, he began an attack of his own. His right hand was curled into a fist and he threw an uppercut right at my stomach. Usually I'd be on guard enough to avoid that sort of thing, but I'd put my all into the missed punch at his head. So his blow hit me straight on and I was knocked right back. I was then flying back onto my ass, defeated. Not because I was in a great amount of pain, but because I knew I'd lost the fight. Thane moved the pistol in my direction. He had time to square the shot. I was lying flat on my back. I had no mobility. I was a fish in a barrel. The moment I started moving at all, I'd be shot. If I rushed at him, I'd be shot. If I rushed away, I'd be shot. If I did nothing, I'd be shot. No matter what, in a matter of seconds, I'd be shot. Oh god. This is it, wasn't it? I'd gotten this far, done so much, and now, on this mystery ship, to this mystery man, I would die. And then I would likely disappear, just like that. My existence removed from this plane. This is the time to reflect. Had I lived a worthy life? One to be proud of? Was I destined to hell? I had a hard life, of that I'm sure. A sympathetic one, a thankless one too. I always tried to do my best, tried to do the right thing when I could. I tried to make things right, and that led me here, to this boat in the middle of nowhere, about to be shot. Just great. I sent my prayers to whatever lay beyond. If there was an afterlife, please have mercy on me. And if there wasn't, then please let somebody back here take up my quest and finish it. So now, goodbye. I was expecting a bullet to come at any moment, but Thane hadn't yet pulled the trigger. Why? I got my answer moments later. Why? What are you doing here? How did you get here? How do you know about the man-jet? This just confirmed what I already suspected. For whatever reason, Thane wasn't expecting me here. Huh? I mean, that made sense. Seemingly, I decided to come investigate the ship on my own. Nobody could have predicted that, but then, why did I pass out in that container? Forget all the supernatural bullshit, I wouldn't randomly fall asleep like that in the middle of an investigation. I didn't think it was drugs at the time since I didn't see any gas in the canister back then. However, I defaulted to accepting that explanation in lieu of any others. Thane, though, didn't expect me on this ship, so how on earth could I have been drugged if the owners of the man-jet weren't aware I was here? I didn't have an answer. I saw that Thane began to tense up, the grip of the pistol slightly changing. Shit. Get your head in the game. Forget that prayer bullshit. If Thane was willing to be talked with, then I wasn't out of options yet. I had exactly one way to stay alive at this point, but that was through some serious bullshitting. Luckily, serious bullshitting was right up my alley. If I answered this honestly, that I had no idea how I ended up here, and that I initially boarded the ship to investigate a probable murder, then I could guess how that would probably play out. No use for me, bullet in the head. So then I needed another answer. Don't shoot. I was sent by your boss. At this, Thane cocked his head. Clearly not the answer he was expecting. Then after a beat he responded in a slow manner. And that would be? Okay, one question down. How to handle this one? It was a standard response to this. However, going down that path would likely turn the conversation toward a lot of details I just didn't have. It was a do or die situation. If there was ever time to make some bold shots in the dark, in a bid for high payout results, this is it. You don't want to kill me? I work for the devil. It was hard to tell with the mask and all, but the response seemed to confuse Thane. Then he began to chuckle a bit. Who? I saw his pistol grip once again to begin to tighten. Ah, fuck. Wrong answer. He was going to shoot. Either it would be a fatal shot or it would be a debilitating shot. And if it were a debilitating shot, then I'd have no chance of escape. Looks like I was right to pray. Today was the day It happened in an instant. Although it took me a second to process what it was. From the stairway up to the main deck, a figure had come barreling in, crashing right into Thane's side. Thane, caught completely unawares, ended up gripping the pistol by extension the trigger. This is a pretty common occurrence when something sudden happens to somebody holding a gun. Luckily, Thane also reacted to the crashing by moving his arm in reaction to the blow. Because of that, the bullet mercifully fired and hit the metal ground by a couple of inches from my shoulder. Too close for comfort, but then again, that's the general trend tonight. After the crash had happened, I could finally comprehend who my saviour was. It was some girl with red hair and glasses. I had seen her somewhere, though I couldn't put my finger on any specifics. She looked, to put it mildly, pissed. Well, I wasn't going to just haplessly lie around anymore. This was a fucking miracle and I immediately needed to take advantage of it. As I started making my way to my feet, the woman barked orders at me in a harsh tone. Get moving. Already on it. Like I said, at this point I was already on my feet. Instantly I began running to the staircase Thane had been guarding just a moment ago. In the corner of my eye I could see him getting to his feet as well. My saviour also recognised the looming danger and began running up the staircase just a bit ahead of me. Soon enough we'd already sprinted. We had sprinted all the way back onto the ship's deck, in front of the room that led to the stairs. We didn't exactly have a ton of time for idle chit-chat. However, as the two of us caught our breath, I figured that encounter was worth a few words. Thanks for that. Who the hell are you? Well, not the response I was expecting. Huh? The fuck are you doing here? Good question. I could turn that question back around on you. Seriously? You gonna turn this back on me? Hey, I was just trying to thank you for saving my life. I only did that to get some answers. Answers you're not giving me. Well look, it's a really tenuous situation we're in right now. I think it's justifiable that... Quick shit, run! In the corner of my eye I noticed through the window that Thane was making his way back toward us. Behind my saviour, I saw a half-open metal container. I immediately began running towards it, grabbing the woman's wrist as I passed by her. I was afraid I'd get some resistance from this, but luckily she was pretty smart and began running with me without a second thought. Right as we jumped into the metal container I heard 2 more shots fired off. Sounds like one hit metal, maybe even the container itself. As I entered the container I turned around and grabbed the handles of the doors. I slammed the container shut. Shit, that was close. You're telling me? That piece of shit's fucking efficient if nothing else. Yeah, well, luckily we were able Once again I cut myself off as I noticed something happening in the corner of my eye. The doors of the container began to open, and in the crack I saw Thane opening them. Immediately I jumped over and grabbed the handles, pulling them back. I strained with all my might, struggling to keep the container closed. On the other side it was clear Thane was also pulling the container open with all his might. This brief clash of wills lasted for a few seconds, but luckily keeping the doors closed was an easier job than opening it. Also, understanding what was happening, the woman rushed over and helped me pull it shut. Her assistance was a surprising boon, making our job much easier. A few seconds more and it seemed Thane gave up trying to pry the container over. I heard the sound of pounding, Thane slamming his fist against the wall. Then a pause. 2 gunshots impacted metal. From inside the container I noticed the indent on the container wall, the bullet almost having penetrated it. We may still very much be screwed. You think? Mercury's one lucky SOB, I gotta say. So many brushes with death, so little time. Must be an absolute killer on your heart. Makes you wonder why Mercury felt the need to go through all this. Actually, I suppose not. JC, huh? I see. Classic vengeance quest, apparently. Little cliche, little done. But you know, there's a reason it's a classic. We love to see some revenge in action. It appeases our darker nature. Watching people get what they deserve. Or maybe not. Maybe you're surprisingly ethical. Actually, bear with me for a moment. I want to run a little experiment with you. Let's imagine the worst person possible. A mass murderer, war criminal, racist, puppy-kicking monster like the limits of human filth. They'll be our test subject with what will be hypothetically punishing. Always push things to the limit in a thought experiment. It's more fun that way. So take the monster and imagine they bump their head. Forget everything. It's scientifically provable, 100% this person has no memories of what they've done. Is it right to punish them? No, not really. We already done that with root double, right? Once you've lost those memories, you're a different person. Your memories make you who you are. That's wrong. Really? Even though this person killed thousands gruesomely, they bump their head and get off free? If it's permanent. Okay, well let's change things a bit. This monster builds a great device. They store their memories in the device, then kill themselves. A year later, a random citizen stumbles across the device and suddenly their brain gets zapped. They have all the memories of the monster before the monster killed themselves. Functionally, they're a version of the monster now. Is it right to punish them? I mean, you have to. You'll have to do something with them, otherwise they'll become dangerous. I guess it's right. Huh. Even though this person, in reality, didn't do anything. Alright, scenario 3. You have a time travel machine with one destination, the day before the monster commits their first major crime. However, you define that. Is it right to go back and punish the monster then? I mean, they're gonna do it anyway, so yeah, sure, whatever. Even though they didn't do anything. Huh. That's your take? Alright, last example. The monster is in their prime. Then, a rift in space-time occurs, affecting just you and the monster. In this rift, you can punish the monster, and they'll feel it. But the monster cannot die, and neither of you will remember anything the moment you leave the rift. No consequences, it doesn't matter. All you'll be doing is punishment for punishment's sake. Pain for pain's sake. And remember, this monster spat on your sister and lit your cat on fire. They posted hate slurs online. Is it right? Not pain for pain's sake, no. I mean, that's just vindictive. That's not punishment. And if he's not going to remember it, that's not like helping reform him. No, I don't think so. Wow. You're quite the empathetic one, you know. Looking at all your answers together, I find your philosophy quite interesting. It's consistent, I suppose, if you look at it the right way. Still, it seems a tad odd to me. At the very least, you have a stance. That's more than I can say about most. I don't know what to say about that, but thank you, I guess. Alright, we're going to wrap this one up here, because, I mean, we're basically at half an hour, so it seems like the perfect time. We didn't make any chips. I thought we were going to earn chips off that one. But I guess not. I don't know what we're going to do in the next one then. Maybe we'll jump back into this one again, and we'll just keep going as far as we can. Because I'm enjoying it, you know. I'm having a good time. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for getting out, feed. I'll see you in the next one.